Hello, family members. I hope you and yours are well. I am so angry right now. I have cried all of my leftist tears. I have shook with rage as I watched people try to make things seem less obviously evil than they are. And can't imagine anyone having a good day on a day like today. Earlier today, an ICE agent was standing in the road and approached a woman who was blocking the road. He was on foot. She was in her car. He had a bunch of friends around him. And by friends, I mean other ICE agents. They were all being watched by protesters. They were all being filmed by protesters. When the woman was approached, a different agent tried to open the door of her car. And I'm sure that she was terrified. I would have been terrified if it was for me. That if she allowed him to open that door, that he would pull her out of her vehicle and do any sort of physical assault to her that he wanted. And that would be that. And, she'd just become another sad story in a long line of stories, like the multiple women who have been assaulted by ICE while pregnant and suffered miscarriages, like the dozens of people who have died in ICE custody, which is further upsetting when you think about the fact that 75% of them are not criminals. Being in the United States when you're not supposed to be, overstaying your visa, and something like that, that's a civil offense. It's a parking ticket. So we're not even accusing them of a crime. We're accusing them at the most of a civil offense. And they're being detained and dying in the dozens. And that doesn't seem to change anything for anyone. So I bet that was probably on her mind. I don't know that. I don't know who she is or what she was thinking, but it's hard not to think that it wasn't on her mind. And so she decided she didn't want that man to open her door, and she tried to drive away. And the ICE agent, the first one I was talking about there, he was standing sort of in front of her car, but, she was sort of turning at the same time. So she was maybe at one point pointed towards him, but she was not trying to drive towards him. She was driving away from him. She literally did drive away from him. And as she's driving away from him, at this point, questions may be asked about that, he shot her in the head. At least once, maybe more than once. He did shoot multiple times. Every source that I've seen says that there were at least 2 shots, maybe more. And at least one of those shots hit her in the head. And as she was dying or already was dead behind the wheel of that car, it just kind of took off and hit the back of another vehicle. Kristi Noem has tried to change the order of these events by saying that she hit the vehicle first and then was shot. That's not true. I've seen multiple videos. Every other source that I've seen make any sort of statement on this does not give that order of events. She either was vastly misinformed or made that up completely out of whole cloth. It's just the obvious, exact opposite order of events. Not that she had much credibility to work with anyway. When I first heard of it, the first bit of news that I saw on it was the mayor of Minneapolis' statement. And he very explicitly says he's seen all the videos, which I'm sure is way more than I've seen, being as he's the mayor. and that there's no case to be made that it was self-defense in any way, shape, or form. So I do hope that we can put that issue to rest, no matter how much Kristi Noem lies to us, no matter how much, in NBC News, I watched their piece on it, and they did admit that Kristi Noem was obviously wrong. They did at least correct that, but they didn't play the part of the Minneapolis mayor's statement that says that refutes that. His statement. They only gave one statement that they knew was wrong. That was the only clip that they played before they started going into interviews with various, expected experts. And they started trying to spin the narrative that there is some question about whether or not it was self-defense. And that really infuriates me, because they're not providing both sides. They're giving plausible deniability for a man who murdered a woman on camera with witnesses, being filmed by multiple cameras, multiple angles that are publicly available. We see them. They're there. You can look for them if you have the place in your heart to do so. You can go look them up and you can see for yourself if you don't believe. This is as cut and dry as what happened to George Floyd, and in the same exact city. And so, of course, people are terrified. The mayor, when he gave his statement, was so angry that he literally used profanity. He told ICE to get the fuck out of the city, which I don't know that much about that mayor, but he does not seem like the type of person to use that kind of language, very easily, very lightly. Even though it's so obviously unjust that all of the public officials there can see and are angry too. They're so terrified that it's going to turn into riots. Riots with ICE present. And I think it's very likely that a lot of people who work for ICE would really like that. I don't think that it should be a surprise to say that it looks to me like ICE and the National Guard, all these unwanted law enforcement agencies that are being sent in to cities and states without the requests of their leadership to terrorize anyone who might be misconstrued as not white American. I think it's pretty obvious that a lot of people involved in these operations would love very much for the population to rise up and fight them physically. They want a war. A lot of these people followed the QAnon conspiracies. And the QAnon conspiracies were very much centered around the idea of war, of something large and violent and transformative happening in our nation, where the enemies of their perceived enemies, the people they believed were evil, would be punished for their wickedness. And a lot of them want that to happen. They may even believe that it's their place to make that happen. That's well within the realm of possibility here. And so, what do we do? What do I do? The woman, I don't know, again, who she is directly, but I do know she's a middle-aged white woman. A middle-aged white woman who would be out there protesting. I can relate to that. I would probably be out protesting as often as I could, if I could. I'm concerned about getting through this video sitting like this. I'm concerned that I'm not going to be able to physically get through everything I'd like to say before my time runs out and my body says, no, you can't sit like that anymore. That's why most of my videos are like this. I've gotten feedback, oh, why don't you do this? I couldn't record videos if I didn't do that. Right now, I'm running on adrenaline of anger. I'm so angry, and I can't do anything about it physically. I want to flip over a table. I want to march in the streets. I want to sit outside of a building blocking ICE agents from doing illegal and cruel acts until they drag me away bodily. I can't do those things, but I want to be doing them. I'm begging you to do what you can here. This woman's life mattered, not more than any of the other lives that ICE has taken. And that's something we have to acknowledge. But it's not just her death that matters here. It matters what that man did after he shot her. Casually holstering his gun and just walking away like it was nothing. He didn't get into any sort of defensive crouch. He didn't keep his firearm out because he felt like he was under a constant risk. He shot a woman as she was literally trying to get away. He shot a woman that was in no way trying to harm him. On camera, from multiple angles, with many witnesses. And he just casually walked away. And I'm really, really, really worried that his reaction is going to be supported by what happens next. That people who oversee him and his agency are going to continue making up stories to try to make him into a victim and her into a villain that deserved to die. I'm very concerned that he's going to get a slap on the wrist or become like a micro celebrity, like what's that guy? The kid that shot people and then got away with it because he was scared. You know who I'm talking about. This guy, we're going to find out who he is. He's on camera too many times. He knows too many people. Somebody who doesn't like him very much in his community, or maybe somebody who loves him very much, is going to feel compelled to call out his name and make sure that his name is known. And I would hope that he will be arrested and prosecuted and given all of his rights to due process. I don't think that's going to happen, but I do hope that does happen. But we don't have to accept that outcome. Once his name is known, shun him. He is no longer a member of our community. When he took her life, he sacrificed his right to enjoy the rest of his. He doesn't deserve to be assaulted. He doesn't deserve to be given any cruel or unusual punishment. I want all of his rights respected. But I also think that I wouldn't want to be in community with him. And I don't want to be in community with anyone else who wants to be in community with him. Sometimes social pressures are all we have. as the working class. You know, we have the ruling class and we have the working class. There is no middle class. There might have been one at some point, but that's been gutted over the last 20 years. We have the working class and we have the ruling class. And there's basically 0% chance that anyone watching this is the ruling class. If you are, I'm sure you know that you are, but if you have any questions in your mind and you're watching this, I assure you, you're probably working class. And we don't have the power of the institution, but we do have the power of our community. Please, please don't let this just become another thing. Please don't accept the corporate media both sidesism of it all. Make sure that you are getting details about what's happening, not just with this incident, but with everything happening in this country and around the world, from multiple media sources, at least some of which are independent. It's hard sometimes to know which independent media is reputable or not. One way that I find reputable media is I start with one independent media source, and then when they bring someone else on to interview, then I follow up and see, is this someone whose voice I want to continue hearing? And I found some really interesting people that way. If you want a really easy entry point, there is the Majority Report, which has its problems, I know. Anytime I've ever brought that up, people are always like, Majority Report. I'm like, guys, there is no news source out there that is perfect or unbiased. Every single news source that you watch, including me, is biased. It's your job to figure out what their bias is so that you can take that into account when you're considering whatever opinions or analysis they give you. Okay? Agree to watch biased news sources with me here, but just be aware of their bias and understand when you can't just take what they say at face value. Okay? But anyway, if you watch YouTube, then they have a daily live stream and there's lots of clips on their channel. It's the Majority Report with Sam Seder, and they do interview a lot of really good independent media figures. And so even if you're like, these guys, they're a good way to get your, kind of dip your toes in the water of seeing what's out there in independent media and finding out, you know, who gives the analysis and the background that I think is going to serve me. And pick several of them and make sure that some of them disagree with each other so that you hear what the criticism is. Because consuming independent media does require a lot more active engagement. But same is true with corporate media, because they've got corporate interests that they have to placate. There's certain things they can't say or won't do. For example, I've been watching mainstream media about what's going on in Venezuela, and very rarely do you hear them use the word kidnapping. However, on independent media, everyone uses that word. And I've even seen it pointed out that when asked about this, Trump says kidnapping is a good word for what he did. So there's literally no reason why ABC News and CBS and NBC should not be referring to it as a kidnapping. It should be like, President Trump has admitted that he kidnapped Maduro, because he has. But that's not how the news is going to frame it. Corporate interests are conservative. We've had a lot of right-wing figures spending a lot of time trying to brainwash us into the idea that all the media is leftist and da-da-da-da-da. And at best, you might see some liberal bias, but liberals are not leftists. They are at best centrist, maybe even a little more conservative than that. And that's a thing. We forget that in our country, our political sort of spectrum has been so pulled to the right that our far right is way far right, and our center is still right, and our left is still a little bit right. The real leftists don't have a policy or don't have any sort of party. The closest thing there is the democratic socialists, which are sort of maybe a little more left of center than the Democrat Party, which is firmly center at best, if not conservative, because they're serving corporate media, and corporate media doesn't want there to be a big, massive change because instability is not good for the shareholders, and that's the only thing they serve is shareholder value. So you have to keep in mind that they're getting their money from people who really don't want everybody to get, they don't want the populace to take drastic action. They don't want there to be much social upheaval. And so they're always going to try to tamp down the volume on anything to make things seem less less extreme than they are. A woman was murdered while being filmed by multiple people by an agent of her government against all training for that. I have heard plenty of experts say so, that there's no reason why this woman should have been murdered. And yet that's not how corporate media is going to say it. I've seen, I checked, I made sure, I didn't just assume. Corporate media is already trying to make this just another story. I'm sick and tired of that happening, of events that should be fully society changing happening, and our corporate news media just tamps down the volume till it just doesn't matter anymore. Why wasn't Sandy Hook a line that we just couldn't cross? And once it was crossed, why was Uvalde a line we couldn't cross and we just crossed? And separating families and then losing their children. Why wasn't that a line that couldn't be crossed? Why wasn't drone murder a line that we couldn't cross? We should have been fighting. We should have been holding people's feet to the fire for their crimes. But we allowed the powerful to help the powerful to get away with doing whatever it is that they wanted with the minimum consequences. And we are bearing the fruits of our inaction now. And I don't have the ability to take action. This is as good as I can do. I have been as definitive as I can about what I have seen and what happened. I make these statements without fear because I don't care if I face consequences. This is the best I can do, and so I am not going to do it half-assed. I'm not asking you to do the same, but I ask you not to look away and to take some sort of action. Do something that you wouldn't have normally done. Today can't just be any other day. An ICE agent murdered a woman on camera, and then the head of the Department of Homeland Security reversed the order of events and tried to paint that woman as a domestic terrorist. She was a domestic terrorist because she was murdered, The only reason that she hit that car, Christy Nome, was because she was dead or dying because one of your agents shot her in the head. You know, maybe there would be repercussions. Maybe someone would try to sue me over this. Do it. I don't have anything. I literally don't. Everything that you see in this frame are gifts to me that my parents gave me. I own none of this. This is just, I am the leech on society that you hate the most. I'm disabled. I can't work. And I don't have any money. I'm just a big fat queer woman who cries her leftist tears and is not ashamed that she does. Because I'd rather be a person with a heart than someone who would try to explain away a murder. I love you so much, family members. I really do. I don't think it's very likely that anything I'm going to say or do related to this is going to make much of a difference. But if I did, if you ended up doing one thing differently that you wouldn't have done because you watched this video and you let me know, it would really help with my suicidal ideation. I'm sorry that I had to, I don't know. It's true though. I mean, like, I was a little bit jealous of her. Why did she get to be the martyr? That's so sick and wrong and twisted. And don't forget about your mental health. Do something, but also don't forget about your own mental health. You can multitask, balance it. We have a lot of things to care about. We have a lot of things to do. We have a lot of people to love. We've got a lot of community to build. And your health is a big part of that. So take care of yourself physically and mentally, please. I am so sad for that woman and her family and everyone who witnessed what happened. And I hope that that this isn't going to be one of those things that we just forget. But I'm not very optimistic. I love you, family members. I'll talk to you later. Take care of each other.